everybody, welcome to another Yarn Scrap Friday with me, Laura, and in this video I'm going to be showing you how to make my little mini amigurumi baby. Okay, so for this pattern we're going to be using some DK light worsted weight yarn. That's a yarn weight of 3, and I'm just using the same yarn that I actually used for my amigurumi doll, so it's a cotton yarn, 100% cotton yarn. And so you just need a skin colour, whatever skin colour you want to use, and some white for the nappy, and then some a colour for the little hat if you want to make the hat, and a little bit of darker brown for the eyes, or black depending on what you prefer to use. And with that I'm going to be using a 3.5mm E4 crochet hook, and it's also a good idea to have some scissors and a yarn tapestry needle as well. That's one with a big eye at the end, and you're also going to need some toy stuffing as well. So you can use yarn scraps if you prefer, it's entirely up to you, but some toy stuffing would be good. Okay, so let's begin. Okay, so we're going to start off with the head. So take your skin colour yarn that you want to use and do a little slip knot. And we're going to work 8 single crochet into a 4 chain loop. So this pattern's in US terminology. So in UK terminology, a single crochet is a double crochet. But we're going to start off by chaining 4 to begin. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. Chain 4. We're going to put our hook into our first chain. Bring the yarn through. And then bring that loop straight through the loop on your hook, like so, and that makes a little loop of your 4 chains, joined at the beginning and the end, and in the middle is a hole. Don't confuse it with your first chain hole, which can look bigger. You need to find that center hole, and into there we're going to work 8 single crochets. So I'm going to put my hook into there, then just wrapping it around the chains, do a single crochet. Okay, we want 8 of those, so 1, into there again, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and one more, 8. So we've got 8 single crochet in a 4 chain loop, and then you should be able to just pull that tail end to bring in that center hole a little bit. And what we're going to do is we're going to find our first single crochet. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. In that first single crochet, do a slip stitch. So just put your hook into there. Bring the yarn through and straight for the loop on your hook to do a slip stitch, and that joins the end of our first round. Then what we're going to do is we're going to do a little chain 1. We're not going to count that as a stitch though, so just ignore that. It's just to get some leverage, and starting in the same stitch we just slip stitched into, so we're going to go back into there. We're going to do 2 single crochet in there, so 1 and another one in the same stitch, 2. We're going to do 2 single crochet in each stitch around back to the beginning until we've got a stitch count of 16, so we're doubling up. So go into the next stitch and do 2 single crochet, 1 and 2, and just work 2 single crochet in each stitch around. So 2 single crochet in the next stitch. Do that all the way to the end. 2 in there. Okay, just going up to the last stitch. 2 single crochet in there. 15 and on the same stitch, 16. So you should have a stitch count of 16, and sometimes it looks like there's 1 stitch left, but that's what I call the fake stitch. It's not an official term, but it's what I call the fake stitch, because we don't want to work into that. And we're going to find our first single crochet that we made. Check our stitch count is 16, and slip stitch into that first single crochet to join the round. Okay, so by the end of the round you should have a stitch count of 16. Then we're going to move on to round 3. We're going to do a chain 1 again. Again, don't count that as a stitch. And this time, starting in the same stitch you just slip stitched into, we're just going to do 1 single crochet in there this time. Just the 1. Then in the next stitch we're going to do 2 single crochet. 1 and 2. And then we're going to repeat that pattern. Okay, so in the next stitch we do 1 single crochet, just the 1. Then in the next stitch we do 2 single crochet. So it's a pattern of 1 single crochet, then 2 single crochet, back to the beginning. Okay, so next stitch 1 single crochet, 2 single crochet, 1 single crochet, 2 single crochet, back to the beginning. You should end on 2 single crochet and you should have a stitch count of 24. So 1 single crochet in the next stitch, just the 1, then 2 single crochet. So repeat that pattern back to the beginning till you've got a stitch count of 24. Okay, just coming up to the last 2 stitches, same pattern, 1 single crochet in the second to last stitch, and then 2 single crochet in the very last stitch. 1 and 2. So by the end of that round you should have a stitch count of 24, and we're going to find our first single crochet and slip stitch into there. If you struggle to see your first single crochet, just count backwards and slip stitch into there to join the round. Okay, you see it getting bigger. Okay, now we're going to move on to round 4. We'll do a little chain 1 again, and this time we're going to do 1 single crochet in the next 2, then 2 single crochet. We're going to start off in the same stitch we just slip stitched into, go back into there and do 1 single crochet by itself. Next stitch we do 1 single crochet by itself, then we do 2 single crochet, which should match up with your previous increase. 1 and another one in the same stitch. Okay, so we're going to repeat that pattern all the way around, doing 1 single crochet in the next 2, so 1 single crochet in the next stitch, 1 single crochet in the next stitch, then 2 single crochet. Repeat that all the way back to the beginning. So you're doing 1 single crochet, 1 single crochet, 2 single crochet, 1 single crochet, 1 single crochet, 2 single crochet, back to the beginning. You'll end on 2 single crochet and you should have a stitch count of 32. Okay, 32. So 1 single crochet in the next 2, next stitch, then 2 single crochet. Okay, just coming up to the last 3 stitches. So again, just 1 single crochet, next stitch 1 single crochet, in the very last stitch 2 single crochet, 1 and another one in the same stitch. Then we just find our first single crochet and slip stitch into there to join the round. Okay, so we're going to do one more increase round. So we're going to do a little chain 1, and then starting in the same stitch we just slip stitched into, we're going to do 1 single crochet in the next 3 this time, then 2 single crochet. So starting in that same stitch as our slip stitch, we do 1 single crochet by itself, the next stitch 1 single crochet, next stitch 1 single crochet, then 2 single crochet, 1 and 2. Okay, so then just repeat that, doing 1 single crochet, 1 single crochet, 1 single crochet, 2 single crochet should line up with your previous increases. 1 single crochet, 1 single crochet, 1 single crochet, 2 single crochet, back to the beginning. You'll end on 2 single crochet and you should have a final stitch count of 40. Okay, So 1 single crochet in the next 3, 1, next stitch, 2, next stitch, 3, then 2 single crochet. Okay. It's coming up to the last 4 stitches. Same thing again. 1 single crochet in the next stitch, 1 in the next stitch, 1 in the next stitch, and then ending on 2 single crochet. Then we just find our first single crochet and slip stitch into there. So you should have a final stitch count of 40 by the end of that round. 40. Hopefully it looks a little something like this. And what we're going to do now is we're going to do 7 rounds of just 1 single crochet in each stitch round. We always start with a chain 1, we don't count that as a stitch. And starting in the same stitch you just slip stitched into, we do 1 single crochet, just the one, and we do 1 single crochet in each stitch around, so just 1 in each. We're keeping a stitch count of 40, and we're going to do that for 7 rounds, okay, 7 rounds, and it should start to shape the head. Okay, so do a little chain 1, don't count that as a stitch. Then starting in the same stitch you slip stitched into, do 1 single crochet in each stitch around, slip stitching in your first single crochet to join the round, and do that for 7 rounds, okay, 7 rounds. So I shall do that and then I shall come back. Okay, so I'm just coming up to the last couple of stitches on the 7th round. So I've done 7 rounds of just 1 single crochet in each stitch around, doing a chain 1 at the beginning, starting in the same stitch as your slip stitch, and then slip stitching into our first single crochet to join. And just be careful you're not adding any stitches by working into that fake stitch. You do need to double check your stitch count and that you're not working into that. Then we're just going to slip stitch into our first single crochet, and there we go. So hopefully you got something that looks a little something like this. It doesn't start turning in until about halfway through. It just looks like it's getting bigger, so do bear with it, and if your stitch count is correct it should start to create a little bowl shape. And what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to bring up a little loop and take our hook out, and we're going to work on some eyes at this point, because we're going to place the eyes between rows 11 and 12, so that's between the last 2 rows. What you want to do is take a short length of a darker colour, so either brown or black depending on what you want to use. It's a little short length, and we're going to work 3 knots on top of each other in the middle. So just do a little knot roughly in the middle, then do another one on top and try and get it to line up on top of each other like that, and then one more. Okay, so you've got like a little lump of knots there, and then what we're going to do is we're going to get our yarn needle and then just making sure that the seam is at the back. Okay, so we don't need to worry about that showing because it'll be hidden under a hat. Hardly see it at all. You can work continuously if you want to. I just sometimes find it easier to join the round so I know where I'm at. So just make sure that that seam is at the back, and then pick a little spot about here roughly in between the last 2 rows and go into one of those stitches from the front with one of your tail ends. The little group of knots will catch on the outside. Then take the other end and just go over very, very slightly, so in between those stitches. Just gives it something to catch and hold on to. Then come through. Okay, and then what we can do, nice and easy, while it's still open, we're going to tie this on the inside to secure into place. Nice and tight. Do a couple of knots. Okay, and you may wish to trim down your tail ends because the dark yarn might show through a little bit. Then just pop that on the inside, and then what we're going to do is we're going to repeat that for the other side. And the spacing in between is I did about let's have a look, about 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 stitches in between the eyes, so they're quite wide, quite far apart, so about 10 stitches. So making sure the seams at the back, I'm going to count 10 stitches over, and I'm going to do the same all over again. Okay, so I'm going to do that, and then I'll come back and we'll finish the head part. Okay, so I've repeated that for the other side. I did about 10 stitches in between, tied that on the inside. And now what we're going to do is we're going to close up our head. We're going to work straight into the body as well. So we're going to put our hook back in. So this is now, we should be now on to round 13. And we're going to do a pattern of 1 single crochet in the next 3, then single crochet 2 together to get our stitch count back down to 32. But again, we're going to start off with a little chain 1. Starting in the same stitch you just slip stitched into, we're going to do 1 single crochet in the first 3. So 1, next stitch, 2, let's move that out of the way, next stitch, 3, so 1 single crochet in the next 3. Then we're going to single crochet 2 stitches together. You may prefer to use the invisible decrease. I've done a video tutorial on that. So do check that out on my channel. I'll try and put a link in the description below. But I'm going to keep this nice and simple for beginners. So to single crochet 2 stitches together, we go into the next stitch, bring the yarn through as if doing a normal single crochet, but we stop and we go into the next stitch, bring the yarn through again. You end up with 3 loops, yarn over, pull through all 3. And that's single crochets 2 stitches together. We're going to repeat that pattern all the way around to the end. So 1 single crochet in the next 3. So 1 by itself, next stitch by itself, next stitch by itself. So 1 single crochet in the next 3, then single crochet 2 together. So the next stitch, stop, next stitch, yarn over, pull through all 3. Okay, so let's repeat that to the end, doing 1 single crochet in the next 3, single crochet 2 together. And your stitch count should go back down to 32. Okay. Okay, last 5, so 1 single crochet by itself, oops, 1 single crochet by itself, and 1 single crochet by itself. Last 2 stitches we single crochet together, so you should end on single crochet in the last 2 together, then find your first single crochet and slip stitch into there. Okay, so moving on to round 14, another decrease round. This time we're going to do 1 single crochet in the next 2, then single crochet 2 together, and our stitch count should go down to 24. But we start with a chain 1, don't count that as a stitch. Starting in the same stitch you just slip stitched into, we do 1 single crochet in the next 2, so 1, then next stitch, 2, then we single crochet 2 together. So the next stitch, stop, the next stitch, stop, yarn over, pull through all 3. So repeat that all the way around, doing 1 single crochet in the next 2, by themselves, and then single crochet 2 together. You should end on single crocheting 2 together. You should have a stitch count of 24. Okay. Grab the last 4, same thing again, 1 single crochet in the next 2, 1 and 2, and single crochet the last 2 together. Slip stitch in your first single crochet, and be careful skipping, you need to skip that fake stitch there. It's always next to your seam. Find the first single crochet and slip stitch into there. Okay, moving on to round 15. Now we're going to do 1 single crochet and then single crochet 2 together. Starting with a little chain 1 first, starting in the same stitch as your slip stitch, do 1 single crochet by itself, and then we're going to go straight into our decrease, single crochet 2 together. And we're going to repeat that all the way around, doing 1 single crochet by itself in the next stitch. Oh, my yarn's gone stringy. There we go. Then single crochet 2 together. Repeat that all the way round until you've got a stitch count of 16. So it's gone back down to 16. So 1 single crochet, then single crochet 2 together. Your decreases, these crocheting togethers, should always be to the right of your previous one. See, they're to the right. Okay, so I should do that, repeat that all the way around, and then I should come back. Three left, same thing again, 1 single crochet, then single crochet the last 2 together. And then slip stitch in your first single crochet. So by the end of this round you should have a stitch count of 16. Go in. Of 16. Okay, it should look a little something like that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to put a little bit of stuffing in now, I think. So get some toy stuffing or yarn scraps. I do recommend toy stuffing, just 100% polyester, available from most toy stores, craft stores. In the UK you can get this from Hobbycraft or local yarn stores. So I'm just going to use a bit of this and stuff the head. Okay, so it actually fits in a surprising amount of stuffing, so you do need a little fair bit for the head to make it squishy but not and firm, not too loose. Okay, and if any of the eye strands are showing through, you can just use your hook to move them out of the way and tuck them inside the stuffing instead. You want to? Okay, but I'm going to leave that for now for the sake of this video, and I'm going to move on to round 16. So for round 16 we're just going to single crochet 2 stitches together all the way round until you get a stitch count of 8. So, and then we're going to start working straight on the bodies. So the bodies is not sewn to the head, we just crochet as one piece. So for this round we just do a little chain 1, starting in the same stitch you slip stitched into, we single crochet 2 together straight away. Let's go into there, bring the yarn through to the next stitch, bring the yarn through, yarn over, pull through all 3. So repeat that all the way round, single crochet the next 2 together. Hide that stringy bit now. Until you've got a stitch count of 8. Okay. Just coming up to the last 2. And then slip stitch into your first single crochets. So they can be a little hard to see. That is your fake stitch there. Your first single crochet is all the way over here. So look for that decrease there. And we're going to put our hook into there. And if you find it a little bit hard, you can just bring up a little loop to move your hook over. Once it's in there, you can then pull the yarn, bring that through, pull the yarn so your loop comes back down, and then slip stitch. Okay, so by the end of that round you should have a very small hole, should have a stitch count of 8. And what we're going to do now is move straight on to the body. So that's going to bug me, that is. So I'm going to try and get rid of that dark yarn a little bit. That one's okay. And I shall come back. Okay, it's moving on to round 17. What we're going to do is we're going to start off with a little chain one. Again, don't count that as a stitch. Then starting in the same stitch you just slip stitched into is just right below it there. We're going to do 2 single crochet. 2 single crochet. Try not to make them too tight. So it's 1 and another one in the same stitch. 2. We're going to do 2 single crochet in each stitch around, so 2 in each. So in the next stitch we do 2 single crochet and repeat that all the way round until you've got a stitch count of 16 again. Okay, so 2 in there as well, and 2 in the next one. So 2 single crochet in each stitch around, and you should end up with a stitch count of 16. Okay, so by the end of that round you should have a stitch count of 16. Do double check your stitch count. Then we're going to slip stitch into our first single crochet to join the round. So to find your first single crochet, it's a little bit difficult to see. You can see your first 2 stitches you did there, these little V's. So find the one on the right, which is going to be your first one, and the stitch is above it. So don't confuse it with your little chain one. You want to make sure you skip that. Slip stitch into there. So moving on to round 18, we're now going to do a little chain one again. Starting in the same stitch we just slip stitched into, we're just going to do 1 single crochet, just the 1, and then we do 2 single crochet. 2 in the next one. 1 and another one in the same stitch. And then we're going to repeat that pattern all the way around, doing 1 single crochet, 2 single crochet, 1 single crochet, 2 single crochet, back to the beginning. You'll end on 2 single crochet and you should have a stitch count of 24. So 1 single crochet in the next stitch, then 2 single crochet. Repeat that all the way around. Just go up to the last 2, same thing again, 1 single crochet, then very last one, 2 single crochet. Should get a bit easier from here on in. Then slip stitch in your first single crochet. Again, don't confuse it with the little chain one. You need to find that first proper single crochet. It should have a little V below it. And slip stitch into there. Okay, so by the end of that round you should have a stitch count of 24. And now what we're going to do is we're going to do 6 rounds of just 1 single crochet in each stitch around to create the body. So we're keeping a stitch count of 24. But what we're going to do is we start off with a chain 1 at the beginning of every round. Don't count that as a stitch. And starting in the same stitch you just slip stitched into, we do 1 single crochet. I'm going to do 1 single crochet in each stitch around, keeping a stitch count of 24, and we're going to do that for 6 rounds, slip stitching into your first single crochet at the end of each round. Okay, so do that for 6 rounds, keeping a stitch count of 24. So I should do that and then I shall come back. Okay, so I'm just going up to the last couple of stitches on the 6 rounds. We've done 6 rounds of just 1 single crochet in each stitch around, and slip stitch into your first single crochet to join the round, and you should still have a stitch count of 24. Okay, so then what we're going to do is just going to bring up a loop and we're going to pause our work there, and we're going to work on the arms next so we can sew them on whilst the body is still open. So we're going to put a little semi baby down there, and I'm going to get some of the same colour going to get some of the same colours, so you can either work from the inside of the ball if you want to, but we need to get some of the same colour, and we're going to work on the arms. So for the arms, what we're going to do, we're going to make 2 of these obviously, and we're going to do a little slip knot to begin using the same hook size, 3.5, as the rest of the doll. We're going to chain 7, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7. We're going to do 1 single crochet in our second chain from our hook. So we don't count the loop on our hook. There's our first, there's our second. Put our hook into there and do 1 single crochet. I'm going to do 1 single crochet in each chain to the end, so you end up with a stitch count of 6. To next stitch, 3, next stitch, 4, next chain, 5, and the last one, 6. Okay, then what we're going to do is we are just going to turn our work, and we are going to do 1 single crochet in each stitch across in all 6. So just turn your work without chaining 1 or anything, just turn your work and work straight into that first stitch and do 1 single crochet in each stitch across. That'd be 6, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the last one, 6, which would be at a slight angle. Then we're going to do that same, we're going to do that again, so we're just going to turn our work and do 1 single crochet in that very first stitch, and then 1 single crochet in each stitch across again. So you should have 6 again. 4, 5, and the last one, 6, 6, yeah, 6. And we're going to do that twice more. So we're going to turn our work again and do 1 single crochet in that first stitch, and then 1 single crochet in each stitch across. Let's do it again, 3rd time. Keeping a stitch count of 6. And the last one. And then we're going to do that one more time. Okay, just once more. So then we just turn straight away, working straight into that first stitch. Do 1 single crochet in each stitch across, keeping a stitch count of 6. Okay, so you end up with like a little rectangle flat piece, and an unusual way to work the arms, but I wanted to make this design quite easy for beginners as best I can. Okay, so that's the end. We've done that 4 times. Okay, so you end up with 5 rows in total. Then what we're going to do is we're going to basically join this, fold it in half and turn it into a little arm. So what we need to do is we need to first of all turn our work, and then going into that first stitch again, we then want to bring up the first stitch from this side as well. So you can tuck that on the inside if you want that tail end. So go through that first stitch the other side, bring that through that stitch that side and through this stitch this side, and then do straight through the loop on your hook. So do a little slip stitch. Okay, pull that nice and tight. I'm going to do that all the way across. We're going to go into the next stitch. This side, I'm going to keep that tail end underneath. Find the corresponding stitch on the other side. There. Then come through that side, come through both stitches. Then straight for the loop on your hook. Okay, that's our second one. Do that again for the third one. Through that stitch, corresponding stitch the other side. Come through both, slip stitch, 3. Next stitch, corresponding stitch the other side, 4. Should have 6 in total. Next stitch, corresponding stitch, then the last one, find the last stitch the other side, and there we go. Okay, so then what we want to do is just flatten it down to make it more tubular, and what we're going to do is we're going to cut our yarn, leave a little bit for sewing. Take your scissors, cut the yarn, I'm going to pull that loop through. Okay, trim down this tail end on the inside. Shove it on the inside, let's stuff it down there. It's out the way, hidden on the inside. I'm not going to stuff the arms, too small, and you don't really need to stuff them. But what we're going to do is we're just going to sew up this end first. So I'm just going to, neatly as I can, just sew up this end, going from one side to the other. So it's sewn up that end. Then what we're going to do is I'm just going to sew to the other end on the inside. So I bring out the needle, goes right through the whole thing, out through the bottom. Okay, and then we can use this tail end to sew it onto our body. So making sure it's just to the side of one of your eyes. I'm just going to sew just slightly below because we don't want it, I want to give it a little bit of sloping shoulder. So I'm just going to go slightly down. And I'm just going to sew this on as neatly as I can, making sure the seam is underneath. So I'm going to continue sewing this on as neatly as I can, and then I'm going to repeat all these steps for the other arm, and then we'll come back and finish off, close off the body. Okay, so I've just repeated that for the other side, sewn that on, and I've tied the two tail ends on the inside together. And what we're going to do now is we're just going to close up the bottom. Just before we completely close the doll, we're going to stuff the body, but what we're going to start off with is we're not going to worry about joining the rounds now or chaining one at the beginning. We're just literally going to single crochet 2 stitches together until our hole has shrunk down. So I'm going to go into the next stitch straight away, bring the yarn through, next stitch, single crochet those 2 together. And we're just going to work continuously around until the hole has closed, and just before it closes we will stuff the body. So just single crochet 2 stitches together. Don't worry about your stitch count, don't worry about what round you're on, we're just going to decrease it closed all the way around. And when you get back to the beginning, don't join the round, just keep going into each stitch. Okay, so it's going to go. You can even work into the fake stitch if you want to, really doesn't matter. Let's live dangerously and do that. It's just about closing the gap. Okay, so I've just continued straight on all the way around, but as the hole is getting smaller, I'm just going to bring up a loop and I'm going to stuff the body whilst I still can, and then carry on and until it's completely closed. Okay, so I'm just going to stuff the body. So I've stuffed the body, and then I'm just going to carry on until I can't single crochet it closed anymore. Okay, so I think that's probably about it. It's a tiny little hole left. What I'm going to do now is cut the remaining yarn. Just going to pull that up and out. We're going to sew the remaining gap closed and then hide our tail end. So to do that, we're going to drawstring it closed. So we're going to go into the next stitch, out for the next stitch, into the next stitch, out of the next stitch. You can see that hole is gradually closing. So next stitch, out of the next stitch. Okay, and when it's closed, just do one more roughly. We're going to hide our tail end by sewing into the body, coming out for a stitch somewhere. Then going back into the same stitch, coming out through another stitch. It all gets caught on the stuffing on the inside, and then just pull that tight, trim as close as you can, and your tail ends will disappear on the inside. Okay, so there is the main head, body and arms. Just going to make the legs, which are very similar to the arms, and then in part 2 I will show you how to do the nappy and the little hat as well. Okay, so for the legs we're going to get the same colour again, and what we're going to do, you obviously need to create 2 of these as well. We're going to do exactly the same as the arm, we're just going to make it just a little bit slightly different. So we're going to chain 7 to begin. Let's do our little slip knot first. Going to chain 7, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7. Going to chain 7, and we're going to do 1 single crochet in our second chain from our hooks. We don't count the loop on a hook. So first there's our second, do 1 single crochet in there, then 1 single crochet in the next stitch as well, and 1 single crochet in the next stitch as well. But then what we're going to do is we're going to do 1 half double crochet. So in UK terminology that's going to be a half treble in the remaining 3. So we're going to yarn over, go into the next stitch, do a half double crochet, pull through all 3, yarn over. In the next stitch we're going to do a half double crochet as well, we're going to do a half double crochet in the very last chain as well. Okay, so again we've got a stitch count of 6. Then we're going to turn our work, and starting in the very first stitch we're going to do 1 single crochet in each stitch across, just a single crochet in each one. So single crochet in the next stitch, single crochet in the next stitch, keeping a stitch count of 6, single crochet in the next stitch, single crochet in the next stitch, and a single crochet in the last stitch, which is always slightly at an angle. Okay. Then what we're going to do is we're going to turn our work, and working straight into that first stitch, we're going to do 1 single crochet in there, 1 single crochet in the next stitch, 1 single crochet in the next stitch. But then we're going to do 1 half double crochet in the last 3. So a half double crochet in the next stitch, half double crochet in the next stitch, and a half double crochet in the last stitch. Okay, then we turn our work and do 1 single crochet in each stitch across. So starting in that first stitch, just do a single crochet in each stitch across, keeping a stitch count of 6. Single crochet in the next stitch, single crochet in the next stitch, single crochet in the next stitch. So these are all single crochets. Single crochet in that last stitch. Okay, then for the last row we're going to turn, do 1 single crochet in the first 3. So single crochet, next stitch, single crochet, next stitch, single crochet, then 1 half double crochet in the last 3. So a half double crochet in the next stitch, half double crochet in the next stitch, and a half double crochet in the last stitch. Okay, and then what we're going to do, you can see this is a slightly different shape to the arm. The arm was more rectangle. This fans out a little bit at the top, but we're going to close it up the same way we did the arm. So we're going to just turn our work, starting in that first stitch. We're going to fold our work in half and find the stitch on the corresponding side, bring that through both stitches, do a slip stitch, keep that tail on the inside, then find the next stitch, then the next stitch on the corresponding side, and slip stitch, and do that all the way across, exactly the same as the arms. Two left. Okay, then what we're going to do is we're going to again leave a little bit for sewing, cut your yarn, just pull that through. I'm going to stuff this using some blunt scissors. I'm just going to stuff that tail end on the inside. That's like a tiny bit of stuffing. And then the fatter end should be this end. So we are going to, we need to sew up the fatter end because that's going to be sort of like a foot, but our yarn is at the wrong end. So what we're going to do is we're not going to sew up this end just yet. We're going to feed the yarn needle down to the bottom for now, and we're going to sew up the fatter end first. So just sew up this end. Neatly as you can. I'm sure you can do a better job than me. Okay, and once you've roughly sewn that up, I'm going to flatten it down. We're going to thread this back to the other end, the narrower end. So this is the thinner end. Okay, so that's the fatter end. This is the thinner end. We're going to sew that onto our body. We want to really squish it as we do that as well. So we're just going to sew it and squish it at the same time. So let's sew this on as neatly as we can, slightly to the side. So you can just pull, if you pull that, it will pull in the yarn. Make sure it's facing that way, so it sort of just comes in a little bit. You can see it starts to create a little foot just by pulling that yarn, which is coming from this end. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, and then I'm just going to sew it on as I did the arms. So repeat all those steps for the other foot and sew that one on as well, and then that's it for the main baby. So I shall do that, and then I shall come back and show you the finished baby, and then we'll move on to part 2. So I'm just finishing sewing on the second leg, and if it's not bunching in well enough like this one, like it's still like a little bit too long, what you can do is you can just do the same thing again. You can just sew to the end of the foot again as best you can. So I'm going to sew to the end, and then you can really pull that in and go back to the end again. Just come up to here, and as you pull that in, you can just pull that, and it should bring in the little foot to make it more dumpy. And then just hide your tail end. Okay, that'll do. Let's trim down the excess. And there we go. There is the main baby. So join me in part 2 for the little hat that we made and the nappy as well. I've actually sat in this little hat at the moment. I've run out of time for this video, but yeah, join me in part 2 to learn how to make the little nappy and the hat. I'll see you soon for some more crochet fun. Thanks for watching this video. Bye.